you guys. Movie retrospective time.
Yeah, this is a good one.
We've been wanting to do this one for a long time. I'm amazed that this is really... Well, we've done 2 Stanley Kubrick movies, I guess. Yeah. We did The Shining, that we actually did on a regular podcast. That was our first episode. And we did A Clockwork Orange. This is his last film, Eyes Wide Shut, which came out in 1999.
Yeah, his last one.
Yeah.
It's still Kubrickian, though. It's just kind of a...
It is, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was kind of a subject when it came out. I was like, what? What the fuck's he doing this shit for? You know, about a sex cult of real rich people. But then, you know, when, I'm not going to name his name, but, you know, Child Island man who did not take his own life, when all that shit went down in the special island, it makes you wonder, like, you know, was Kubrick trying to tell us something? Because his relatives said that he was trying to tell us something. And maybe he had heard about things like this, or maybe there's more of it out there. Weird sex cults.
The thing about it, though, is that, well, for one thing, this movie, which I don't know if a lot of people know this, but this movie is actually based on a novella from the 1920s. And it actually is, even though the novel is set in Vienna, like at the turn of the century, like the turn of the 20th century, it's almost beat for beat. Like the plot is almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Other than it's set at Carnival rather than Christmas, but other than that, it's pretty similar.
But still, that just feeds into what I'm saying, though. Because the whole movie is a lot of plausible deniability. And you could also say that him choosing a pre-written story is plausible deniability.
Although the thing about it, it's like, I know that there's like all these... It kind of sucks because I feel like there's all this stuff that came out, like, and there's tons of, like, videos about this movie that, you know, it's almost like straining credulity, like people that think that The Shining is about how he faked the moon landing and stuff. Because it's like, oh, it's about the Illuminati and all this other kind of stuff. I think the stuff about the sex cult in there, I mean, it does have something to say about, you know, the power elite and, like, the power dynamic and stuff. But I think that it's incidental because I don't really think that the movie is about the sex cult. I think it's just kind of like... I think the significance of the sex cult is kind of a voyeuristic anonymity more than anything. It's why everyone is masked and stuff like that. So I don't know if he was saying anything particular, because I even know there's some people out there that say it's like, oh, because Stanley Kubrick died like shortly before this film came out. Like he had finished it kind of, but you know, he never really finished anything because he kept like tinkering with things several decades after they were finished and stuff. But he did like have a final cut of it, and he showed it to Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And then like a few days later, he died of a heart attack. He was 70. So some people have even gone like the conspiracy theory route and being like, oh, well, he exposed the thing and they killed him and all this other stuff.
I don't believe that.
Which I think is really stupid. Yeah. And the thing about it is like watching it again, because I saw this in the theater when it first came out in 1999. And I remember being distinctly like underwhelmed by it, I guess. But I saw it like more... I saw it a few more times over the years, and I think I've developed more of an appreciation for it and like kind of what it's trying to do and like the symbolism that it's kind of trying to get across.
This is only the second time I've seen it. And the first time, like I said, I was underwhelmed too. I was like, didn't really get it. Why is this a big deal? You know what I mean?
And the whole thing about the orgy is that I think what happened with this was that there was so much, because this movie like had such a troubled production history. It took so long like to make it. Because he kept tweaking it and all this other stuff, you know, like he does. But this actually took longer than his normal films would take. And so I do feel like... and then there was like a big hype about, oh, it's going to be this big orgy thing. So it seemed like that was the thing everybody was focused on. And then when the movie came out, like some people were like, meh, like the orgy's not that big a deal and everything like that. I'm like, well, if you watch the movie several times... you understand that, like, the orgy's not supposed to be a big deal. It's not supposed to be sexy. It's not supposed to be titillating.
It's about power.
It's supposed to be... It's just supposed to be a representation, because there's other representations in, too, like with the sex workers and with other things that are going on during his journey. Yeah. Like, through these 2 days. It's just supposed to be a representation of the fantasy of anonymity, you know, that is very alluring, but is also ultimately dangerous and ultimately empty. I think that's kind of what the whole point of it is.
That's only one aspect of it, though. if you look at the party that they were at, and then later the orgy, it does really link in musically and stylistically with what was happening in the Gold Room in The Shining. He is telling you that the ghosts from The Shining, the ghosts of all those evil, rich, powerful people that built the Overlook Hotel, are the same people that are doing this damn sex cult. That it's the same class of people. It's the same type of people. That they're the very powerful, wealthy elite. And the guy tells him, he says, hey, you'd be scared if you knew who those people were. You wouldn't be asking so many questions. So it is talking about that.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't think that's the main theme of it. I think
it's just one of it.
I think it's just a mirroring of their individual relationship.
Yeah.
Because even the book, the original book, was about the couple.
Yeah.
And was about not only the masks that society wears or stuff that goes on like underneath that people don't know about, which I think is kind of that was, but it was also saying like in a marriage, how, you know, the two partners in the marriage never actually know each other, and maybe they are actually strangers to each other as well. So it was just kind of like it was like a microcosm, macrocosm type of thing, where it's like, here's like all these wealthy people, and this is what they get up to, you know, behind closed doors. And then there's the whole mirroring of the relationship between Bill and Alice in the movie, where they really don't seem to know that much about each other's desires or wants or anything like that. Because the whole thing of her like busting out and telling him about, you know, the fantasy that she had about the fucking the stranger, and that was kind of like the inciting incident that sends him off on this whole like journey and everything. And the fact that he had been married to her for 9 years and never knew that about her was kind of like, you know what I mean? So it's almost kind of like they were strangers to one another, even though they had become, you know, even though they were supposedly intimate with one another and had known each other for such a long time. So I think it's just kind of like several levels of that, like commenting on one another. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There was a couple different aspects too. There was also a lot of references. There was 2 references to child prostitution, of a daughter pimping out, or a guy pimping out his daughter and entrapping other people with it. That's in there. Kubrick is definitely telling us that degenerate shit is going on. It's a world of horrors. I mean, just look at. That's Tom Cruise's whole conundrum, is that everywhere he's turning around is hoes. Hoes and hoes. There's a big hoe theme, and he can't deal with it. I don't really think he's a really good character. I think he did a great job at that character, but I think he's kind of a weak man.
He's unlikable. And actually, Tom Cruise said that about him. He said he didn't particularly like that character.
Yeah, he's an unlikable guy. But Kubrick is telling us that, yeah, there are fucking rich people abusing shit. And that shit has since come out.
Yeah, but like I said, this goes back to like when the book was written. Like I said, there was very similar shit going on in the book. So it's just kind of like, I don't think he wasn't commenting on anything in particular. He was just saying, you know, the power elite have always had this.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about it in modern times, you don't come out and say it that way. You know what I mean? You find an old book about it and you revive it that way. That way you have plausible deniability.
Well, he bought the rights for the book in 1968. He was actually going to make this movie after 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I guarantee you, he knew he knew that shit was going on.
He was going to make He was going to make it after 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. He initially wanted to make it. I haven't read the novel, but he initially wanted to make the movie more comedic. Like, he wanted to make almost like a dark comedy type of thing. He wanted Woody Allen and Mia Farrow originally. Then he was thinking about putting Steve Martin in the role after The Jerk came out. So this was something that he had been working on for a really, really long time. I think like Harvey Keitel and Jennifer Jason Leigh were in this at some point too, but you know, they left sometime during their production because it was taking so long, and Harvey Keitel had creative differences with him. But Stanley Kubrick was very interested in getting, for the central characters, he wanted an actual married couple. So when he was thinking of working on the film, he was like, for a time, he wanted like Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, who were married at the time. But then finally he got around to getting Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and they were married at the time, although they divorced a year or two after this movie came out. And some people speculated that the stress of the shoot, Tom Cruise very famously developed ulcers during the shooting because it was like 400 days or some ridiculous. They had only said that he said it was going to take 6 months, and it ended up taking more than a year, like, to shoot the movie, just because he has to do like 50 bajillion takes of everything because he's a perfectionist. But there was also some talk that because of like all the emotional shit that was going on, like between Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and all the shit that they had to kind of plumb to play these particular characters. And, you know, Stanley Kubrick wanted to get like some verisimilitude in there too, because I heard that he made Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman sleep in their character's bedroom, like on the set, like while they were, just so they could kind of like get the whole realism thing going. So some people have speculated that the shooting of this movie kind of like exacerbated the problems in their marriage that they already had. You know what I mean? Because you could kind of see it like up on screen.
Yeah.
And I think that was one criticism, that when this movie first came out, that they didn't seem, I mean, for a married couple, they didn't seem to have a lot of chemistry with one another, which was one of the things that I thought when I first saw the movie. But now that I think about it, and now that I've seen it a bunch more times, I think that makes the movie better. Because I think that's kind of the whole point of their relationship in the movie, is that they're so disconnected from one another. You know, he doesn't know what's going on in her head, but he thinks he does. It's like, you know, and just the fact of her having a fantasy, she didn't even cheat on him. She just like revealed that she had this really elaborate fantasy about this stranger that she saw like the year before. And, you know, she said, I would have, you know, if this guy had like said he just wanted me for one night or something, I would have like abandoned you and abandoned our daughter and everything, just abandoned my whole life. And that like really seems to shock him and kind of sends him off on this odyssey, which is interesting because the story beats of this, and there's like a lot of like literary references and shit like that that's scattered throughout this. This story is very reminiscent of the Odyssey. Like, you know what I mean? Like with them going off, and like Odysseus going off, and Penelope, or whatever her name is, Penelope or whatever, back home with all the suitors and everything like that. So it's paralleling that as well. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah. What?
No, I'm just saying, yeah, I think it's a stretch. I mean, it kind of does, but there's a lot of...
It's not, because like a lot of the references that he made in it, look, like the creepy Count Chocula dude, like at the beginning, who's dancing with Nicole Kidman at the party that she's kind of flirting with. He says something about Ovid. It's like there's all like, you know, the kind of statues in the back and all this other kind of shit. So there's all this, you know, how Stanley...
It's a Kubrick movie. I mean, everything means something, and it's all fucking, you know what I mean, different layers of it. It's just, but like you said, I think I liked the story, but I think I definitely think that that you know the movie and the book that he chose to tell this story, he is telling us something. I mean, this has been going on in the ruling class for a long time, and they're hiding it. And that's what it's all about. Right, but I'm just saying that that's not the only point. That's not really even the main point of the story. No, it's a bunch of other stuff. It's just that the other stuff really isn't. It's more interpersonal stuff between this man and a woman that have been married for a long time. He's kind of sick of her. But from some weird reason, he's sick of her, but he's jealous that she fantasized about some other dude. So that tempts him to go out and screw around on all these hookers and go on these weird sex parties. He doesn't do anything either because he's kind of a pussy. You know what I mean? He's a pussy for not doing it. And then he's also a pussy for getting upset that she fantasized about this. To me, it's childish. He's a childish character. Well, some people have pointed out, like I said, that the main point of his character, like you said, he's very unlikable. And even Tom Cruise said that he didn't really enjoy playing the character because he didn't like the character. But he's jealous of a woman's fantasy. Yeah, and like I said, and the fact that he's been married to this woman for 9 years, and he's like shocked by this revelation that she also has sexual desires, and she also, because the whole point of that, I mean, that, like I said, that whole argument that they have, like when they're both high, that's kind of the instigating, incident that like sends him off on this path. Which I think is strange. I think it is, but like I said, that's kind of the whole point, that he seems to have never considered, because he's trying to tell, and he says this pretty much word for word, that
that's not how women think, he says to a woman, as though he knows what she thinks, like, more. Yeah. But he has, like, all these ideas about what women are like and what women think about. And then she kind of, like, schools him and is like, no, this happened last year. And it's like, I still remember it. And she very vividly remembered it. She's like, so we're just as sexual as you are. We're just as interested or allured by sex with strangers as a man would be. And he is seemingly very shocked by that.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because he was just flirting with 2 young actresses and models that were coming on to
But
him.
from his point of view, that's just what men do, but women aren't like that.
Yeah, like the women weren't involved. That was 2 women.
I know.
You know
but,
what I mean?
But see, that's kind of the fact that it's like where he never even thought to consider
that his wife was like that.
That his wife was like that, or that women in general were like that. Right. That was kind of the whole point of the story, was like him coming to the realization that he didn't really, that he thought he knew what women were like, and that they weren't anything like men, and like finding out that he was completely wrong about that.
From my point of view, is I just thought that I saw that angle as kind of amusing and kind of dumb, because I think I just take that shit for granted. But and I'm being shown a character that, from my point of view, is pretty lopsided. Although there are guys like that.
Yeah.
It's just that
they're kind of showing that he's a little bit naive.
Yeah, exactly.
And the interesting thing about his character too, and I didn't really realize that until I watched it again last night, was that every time he gets drawn into some encounter, like when they're at the party the Ziegler's party at the beginning, and he gets led off by those 2 women, you want to go to the end of the rainbow or whatever. The costume shop is also called the Under the Rainbow, matter of fact. So that's another mirroring there. But so they're leading him off, and he would have gone with them, it seemed like. But then, like, he came and got interrupted. So it's like every time he goes and, like, is gonna, do the deed, like he goes in the sex worker Domino, he goes in her apartment, he's gonna sleep with her probably, but then his wife calls. So every time he's always, like, interrupted. So it's almost kind of like he doesn't have... He's very passive, like a cipher. He doesn't have any agency.
And he comes back the next day, and he almost screws the roommate, and then the roommate says, oh, no, she's got AIDS. And then he loses his rock up, so he's like, oh, I can't do this now. And I said, well, what did you think sex was all about? Of course there's going to be risk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fucking so...
It's almost kind of like him coming to the realization that fantasy and reality are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Or that... Because, like I said, it's kind of like every time he tries to do something in reality, it's like fraught with danger. Like he goes to this sex cult and he gets threatened. Would they actually do anything to him? We don't really know, because they leave it ambiguous over whether they killed Nick Nightingale, whether they killed that girl that warned him.
I'm pretty sure they did.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying that the whole point is that they leave it ambiguous.
Yeah.
So that it could go either way.
Yeah.
Maybe it was all staged, like Ziegler said it was, or maybe it wasn't.
I don't think it was.
You don't know.
I think they just killed her by shooting her up with a bunch of heroin. That's what she normally did anyway. Yeah. And that was deniable. And then the other guy, I don't know if they killed him, but I'm sure they beat his ass. Yeah. Because they admitted that he beat his ass.
Yeah, so, or at least like hit him in the face once.
That'd be the same as beating his ass. Beating him up, they beat him up and then sent him away. And, he wasn't going to talk because he knew how powerful and rich those people were. Yeah. They are talking about stuff like Child Island Man, and there are a bunch of those groups. There's got to be. Well, yeah, and like I said, he's telling us about them. And then there's the whole occult aspect to it.
Yeah, they use kind of an Illuminati type of thing,
right? And he's just trying to tell us that there's secret societies and they've been around for a long time. And there have been ex-presidents and presidents that have mentioned that the United States is not going to be controlled by secret societies. I think one of them, JFK, I think, said that. And it wasn't quite really clear what secret society he was talking about. And I think it was something in the intelligence agency. Do you remember that speech? No. Yeah, I think it was JFK that said that. So it's an old boy network. They've been around a long time. You know what I mean? Kind of like that damn creation of care ceremony. I forgot the name of that thing. But the big owl and that big ceremony that they got it on film, and it's just old boy networks and clubs, and these guys have money and they get away with shit. They're so rich, you know what I mean? The police can't get on them.
Yeah, but like I said, to me that seems like the least interesting aspect, because everybody knows that shit's been going on since time immemorial.
I didn't know it, and I think a lot of people didn't believe it until Child Island Man. And then, you know, they're powerful enough to kill him while he was in prison. You know, and then evidently goes back into Europe with, you know, royal families and stuff.
Well, yeah, like I said,
they've been doing this kind of shit for generations.
That's what I mean. So
generations and generations.
Yeah. But
that's the message of the movie.
Another interesting thing about it, and some people have pointed out that maybe now there is something of like a surreal aspect, or maybe a hyper-real sort of aspect, even though this movie is supposed to be set in New York, and they did shoot some like B-roll footage and stuff like that in New York. They actually, you know, Stanley Kubrick was, he lived in England, and he was famously afraid to fly. So he wanted to shoot the whole thing in Britain. So they essentially built Greenwich Village at Pinewood Studios in London. And they also dressed up some like streets in London, I think in Kensington and stuff like that, to look a little bit more like New York. Now, some of the scenes with like Tom Cruise, like walking down the street, if you see him, like what would one of the guys that worked on the film said, if you see Tom Cruise walking down the street, like from the front, in the back, that's rear projection. If you see him walking from the side down the street, then that's London. That's not New York. But like I said, a lot of it's on a set. But the interesting thing about doing it on a set is that it gives it like a weird, like fairy tale kind of quality where it's not quite, because you can tell that that's not New York. You know what I mean? Even though they did try to recreate it. But some people have said, because the original novel, which I think was called Traumnovelle, like in German, which translates to a dream story, even though that is talking about the Nicole Kidman character, Alice, who I think her name was Albertina in the book. But, you know, since her dream or her fantasy was like kind of the kicking off thing of him going off on this like weird tangent, some people have also argued that Tom Cruise's whole journey, which is only like 2 days, like in the universe of the movie, was actually a dream because it mirrors Nicole Kidman's dream about her getting like fucked by all the guys and laughing at her husband. You know what I mean? So some people have thought that the whole shit that he went through, because they're arguing that like a lot of it is not super realistic. Some of it is like kind of over the top or like kind of weird and like fairy tale like. So it's almost kind of like it's a dream, or not necessarily a dream, but not really in reality either. Like kind of in a weird liminal space, like between like reality and fiction. Because some people have said too that, I mean, the whole title Eyes Wide Shut, it means you're denying things. Like you kind of know what's going on, but you choose to like close your eyes to them. You know what I mean? Whether it's...
You know about it, but you won't see it.
Right. Whether it's, you know, not seeing your, you know, your wife's sexual desires in the same way that you see your own sexual desires, or whether it's not seeing, you know, kind of the corruption at the heart of like society and things like that. So it's just kind of like several levels of it going on. You know, like I said, so I'm not saying that the movie's not, you know, it's nominally about the sex cult, but the sex cult is not really the main focus of it. I just think it's like it's like the larger mirror of the relationship between the two of them, and by extension the relationships in marriages, whether it's between
the whole overarching theme is sexual corruption. That's what it's about. Think about it. I mean, even him, even though he's kind of fucking naive, he's still got a lot of like corruption in him. His naivete makes him blind to what's going on.
Well, he gets led along.
He gets led along, and then he's not. It's just a lot of it. It's about the sexual power dynamic too. You know what I mean? About this secret cult and society and man and woman. And so it's just, you know, kind of like I don't know. Man, that's mundane problems. I don't have those problems.
Everyone has problems.
Yeah. Those are the problems of people that worry about shit like that, though.
No,
you know
I'm just
like,
saying
me
that
and you don't worry about that shit, you know?
Yeah, but it's like, it is something that a lot of people worry about. Jealousy, infidelity.
Yeah, I don't fucking worry about what some woman fantasizes about. That's not the same as doing it.
Well, yeah.
I fantasize about getting pissed and fucking knocking somebody's head off and cutting somebody's head off and shit, you know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily, that's not the same as doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing.
But like I said, the interesting thing
he's
about...
awful fucking sensitive, you know, that, she fantasized about sleeping with them dudes. Oh my God, I can't take it.
And it's like all he can think about.
Whores are everywhere. You know,
I actually read a really interesting piece, like it was 2 different writers on Vulture, and they were arguing that, you know, not only was Eyes Wide Shut the best movie of 1999, but also that much like Stanley Kubrick's original conception for the film, it was actually sort of supposed to be a dark comedy.
Yeah.
Which I guess I can kind of see that. I was reading that and I was kind of like...
Well, think about that one scene where that dude fucking is jumping on those 2... Japanese guys for fooling around with his daughter and says he's going to call the cops, and then later on you find out it was all a setup. He was pimping his daughter out to the 2 Japanese guys and got a big sum of money for it, and the daughter was into it.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty fucking corrupt right there. That's some wild shit. And the girl was supposed to be underage.
Yeah.
Is that dark comedy or what? What is that?
That's what I mean. And I just I feel like there was a lot of comedic moments in it that I think at the time were not seen as comedic, but I think they kind of were. Maybe more like sardonic.
Yeah, I don't think it's too funny. I mean, dude fucking pimping out his...
No, it's not funny. I mean, you know,
but and it just kind of added into this fucking theme of sexual corruption through this whole movie.
Yeah.
That the world is a fucking bad place and sex, money, and power is really running it. You know, and that's what that scene was all about. And
there was the whole thing, too, about... I don't know, because, you know, Stanley Kubrick, his movies are very layered and very complex and lend themselves to, like, a lot of different interpretations. I don't know if he was necessarily saying that there was safety, I guess, in the bonds of matrimony, and if you strayed away from that, then you could die. You know what I mean? Because, like, he literally, like, gets threatened by the cult. Then he, you know, didn't have sex with the prostitute that ended up being HIV positive. And then, if you notice, there's, like, little hints to that. Like, when that dude is following him down the street and he stops at the newspaper thing, and the newspaper that he buys, which is the New York Post, in big letters, like, the headline says, "Lucky to be alive." It's almost like he just barely avoided, because he didn't stick his dick in anything else. Like, he just barely avoided death.
Of course that's what it means.
Yeah.
That's what it meant. You know what I mean? Because there's a bunch of threats out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The sex cults and fucking getting trapped in prostitution stings, underage prostitution stings, and getting trapped with fucking prostitutes with AIDS. You know, so yes. Yeah, like... Definitely.
Like, the desire for anonymous sex is dangerous. Riddled with pitfalls.
That's exactly what the movie says, and the movie says you should be thankful that you're married.
Yeah.
It says you should be thankful that you're married to a beautiful woman and that you have a family. That's how the movie ended.
Yeah, because I think the whole point, the interesting thing too, is that one of the first scenes in the movie, which I think is trying to establish, you know, like I said, you don't find out until a little bit later when he's talking to Nick Nightingale at the Sonata Jazz Club or whatever, that they've been married for 9 years, but you can see in the first couple scenes, like when they're getting ready for the Ziegler's Christmas party, you can see he's trying to establish how familiar they are with one another. One of the first scenes is them getting ready for the party, and he's like in there looking at his hair in the mirror, and she's like on the fucking toilet, like wiping and shit like that. They don't, like in the fancy dress.
They're all used to each other.
Right, so they're used to each other. So I think that's another thing, and it's kind of like an unaddressed thing between them, where they're just so familiar with one another, maybe they don't even see each other in a sexual way anymore.
Well, no, that was pretty much established to me, because she's like, aren't I beautiful? He's like, you're always beautiful.
And he's like not even looking at her. He's not even looking at her. Yeah. Like, because he's just like used to seeing her. Yeah. And the fact that he is so alarmed by her, you know, very vehement, like, retelling of this vivid fantasy that she had, that suggests to me that in all the 9 years they've been married and however long they knew each other before that, they've never really talked about their sexual fantasies or anything like that. So, like I said, they're almost kind of like, even though they're very familiar with one another, they're also very really dissociated from their own desires. He's very dissociated from her desires. It's like, and she has to be, like, to be flirtatious, to talk about sex, when she does it at the party, like for that Count Chocula, she's drunk. When she does it
Count Chocula.
Yeah, so he was like a Hungarian dude. And when she does it like to him, she's high, like on pot. Yeah. So it's almost kind of like she has to have her inhibitions taken away before she can be honest with him about her desires. And that alarms him. He accuses her of being aggressive.
So I was saying that these are kind of like mundane problems. I don't have them. They're like normie problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fucking normies are like that. Me and you are fucking freaks. We don't really have these problems. All right? Like,
well, yeah, to me, it's like, it was very funny. It was very funny to me how, because even in 1999...
If you guys knew our personal histories, we don't have fucking problems like this. And then, like, we're like, nah, I'm going to get into it. This is a movie review. But then, like, it's also shown in the movie that not all men and not all people pay the same penalties for doing this shit. Like the Count Chocula guy that you're talking about?
Yeah.
He had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
He could go out and fuck all these women. How is that going to affect him negatively?
Right. Well, yeah, and all the people at the party, they just hired hookers and...
Right, yeah. You know, he they just did what they wanted. It didn't matter if he was married or not. He could do whatever he wanted. He had all this money.
Yeah.
And he was an older guy in his 50s, and he was still looking pretty sharp. And he could put the move on anybody's wife. That wouldn't matter to him. Yeah. It might matter to your husband, but fuck your husband. Yeah. He didn't give a shit about your husband or you.
Well, so, yeah, you know, clearly.
This is about Count Chocula getting some stank. You know what I'm talking about? That's what this is about. Which I understand that too.
And it's interesting. There's a little bit of a class thing too, because even though Tom Cruise's character Bill is a doctor, and him and Nicole Kidman, I mean, she's a stay-at-home mom, but they have like a really, really nice apartment and all this other stuff. They're still like not on the top echelons of the 1%.
And their decor was kind of tacky. Did you notice that?
It was a little bit. Well, actually, that was
colors and shit.
It's funny because that was a recreation of Stanley Kubrick and his wife's house, and like all the paintings and stuff. That was his wife's paintings.
Damn, that's some tacky shit.
His wife's paintings.
That was some tacky fucking colors. I don't like that kind of colors in the house.
Yeah, but I don't want any colors in my house.
Not those kind of colors. Although I must say that during the 90s, that was a popular color palette. Yeah, so it's not so much that it's like tacky, it's just it was of the time. It was of the times.
Yeah, right. But like I said, so even the fact that he was very wealthy, he still wasn't up to that level. I mean, because that's one of the ways.
He was trying to drop his doctor card all the time, make sure everybody.
I know, and it's like I had forgotten about that because I had forgotten because I haven't seen this movie in several years, but I had forgotten what a fucking smug, glib prick he was.
Well, he was doing that because dudes
I'm a doctor.
Dudes were fucking trying to beat him up and call him a fag on the street. Remember that?
Yeah.
So, but I'm a doctor.
He was always like throwing that down, like to get information.
Yeah, to get information.
You know what I mean?
I think they were trying to say that there was a little bit of insecurity.
Oh yeah, he was massively insecure.
Yeah,
massively insecure.
Because fucking, you know what I mean, average Joes didn't really respect him that much. But he had that damn doctor card. Yeah. And I think that's what that was all about.
And another thing too that kind of hints at the little class thing is even when they're at the Ziegler's party, like at the beginning, the Christmas party, he got invited there presumably because I guess he was Ziegler's doctor or his wife's doctor or something like that. So, he was one of his patients or whatever. Yeah. So he gets invited there, but him and Nicole Kidman are dancing and she's like, "Do you know anyone here?" And he said, "Not a soul." He doesn't know anybody there. The only person he knew was the working class guy, the dude playing the piano. Yeah. So the fact that, that was the guy that got him into this party and they immediately knew that he wasn't of them because he showed up in a taxi. Yeah. And because of the password and everything.
Let's talk about the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
First off, the shit is Kubrickian as fuck.
Well, yeah.
A lot of it, especially the cult scenes, reminded me a lot of The Shining with the gold room and the ghosts. And and they even play that song.
It is, yeah.
At one point, it is telling you that it's the same class of people. Okay. And there is, when you see the cult, there is some kind of supernatural weirdness to it. I mean, the singing sounds like Dead Can Dance. Yeah. The music sounds like Dead Can Dance. And the voices of the chanting don't quite sound right. They sound kind of ghostly. Did anything supernatural happen in it? No. Not that I could tell. It seemed to be some kind of sex magic cult.
Yeah, it was. To me, it came across as some kind of like Crowleyan
Yeah.
Like, because like I said, it was basically just a pretty...
Yeah, and it had
a dreary looking orgy, and it's
right.
like even the way he's walking through it, like just kind of looking at it like it was a nature program or
they
something
had
like that.
10 to 13. I tried to count them because everything means something in Kubrick, so I thought was trying to look for numerology of how many girls there were. But they were kind of these nude sex slaves, and they were slaves, evidently. They were kind of owned, supposedly. And they could pay for things with their lives and weird shit like that. And it's just like you got these 10 to 13 of these tall, skinny sex slaves with these masks on and shoes, and they go out and have sex with people while everybody else watches. And they're all in masks and these fucking cloaks. They're also having sex with each other. And you're not really sure. They're just there to service the crowd, I guess. You're not really sure.
Well, I think they're prostitutes. I mean, they're prostitutes.
They said they were.
Yeah.
But they said they were prostitutes outside of the cult.
Well, and the one girl was the same girl that OD'd at the Ziegler's party at the beginning.
Ziegler just said they were prostitutes.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Yeah.
That's just what he said.
Right.
They might have been slaves. Okay. Or some kind of cult member. A slave to a cult. It's nothing's proven. It's just
like I said, everything just like kind of leaves it ambiguous.
Yeah. So,
because I don't think it's supposed to be...
At the Child Island, they were both kind of slaves and prostitutes. They were kind of a mixture of the two. And they were coming out of these trailer parks here in Florida. And some of them were brought in under contract, but some of them stayed there. And nobody knows how many of them there were. There were hundreds of them. Some of them evidently can't be found. Were they killed? Nobody knows. It's all deniable.
Yeah.
Just say it. And it is talking about a similar situation than that. Whether or not Kubrick knew about it firsthand, I don't know. Maybe there's several of those or many of those, and it's rumored. I don't know. I don't think anybody, nobody's talking about it. Depends if more gets caught or what. Also, maybe shit kind of like the Nexium cult, maybe like that.
Yeah.
There might be more of it out there, Anyway, you don't want to talk about too much about Child Island, man. They might fucking come and get me. I don't know. Okay. It just seems like Kubrick knew something and he was trying to tell us. The acting in the movie was good, real good. Is this Tom Cruise's best work?
I don't know. Magnolia was pretty fucking good, which actually came out the same year as this.
There's a couple scenes where he's covering his face too much, like he can't take it because there's just too many damn whores in the world. You know what I mean? Like doing like this, it seems kind of. It doesn't seem genuine.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a little bit over the... Like, you can't be that upset about this, dude.
Well, the thing about it, though, and this is kind of what... This piece that I was reading that went a little bit into... Maybe this is supposed to be, like, a little bit sarcastic or a little bit, like, of a dark comedy kind of tone.
Yeah.
Because, particularly, like, at the end, where he comes home and Nicole Kidman is sleeping and the mask is on the... thing next to, like, he's busted.
Yeah.
And then he just immediately starts crying and is like, I'll tell you everything. And, like, the over-the-top way he reacts makes me think that maybe that was done deliberately.
Man, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you this, though. Tonally and stylistically, this one, you can put it right there with The Shining. It's very similar in tone and feel.
It is,
Except it's not horror. Not really.
I don't even know what genre I would call this.
Either.
Because, honestly... It was kind of marketed, like, before it came out. I mean, there was a huge marketing push. I think this was actually his second most financially successful movie. It made, like, buckets of money. But, he had died before it came out, so he didn't get to see that. But Warner Brothers was really pushing this, and they kind of marketed it as an erotic thriller. Like, they put a lot of, like, emphasis on, it's an orgy, and it's, like, crazy, and all this other kind of stuff. Even though... I don't feel like that. I think they just kind of used that as a cheap marketing gimmick, and that wasn't really what the movie was about. So I don't even know what genre I would call this. It's like a dark relationship drama with occult overtones or something. I don't even know what I would call it. I don't know if it's necessarily erotic in the sense that
I didn't think any of the girls were good looking.
In the sense that I don't think that the erotic scenes, like the orgy and stuff, I don't think it was supposed to be titillating. I think it was supposed to be creepy and unsettling and kind of showing you that maybe what you thought you wanted, like consequence-free sex with like anonymous people, like no strings attached, maybe that's not the best thing.
Whenever Kubrick shows a nude woman in any of these movies, they kind of fucking go back to that woman in the bathtub in Shining. When she was young for a second, real fucking skinny and long looking and not shapely at all, you know what I mean? And that's kind of, Nicole Kidman kind of looks like that. She's got a pretty face and she looks good in clothes. She takes her clothes off there and she has no curves, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like something out of Cosmo. It's kind of like a gay man's version of the way a woman should look. You know what I'm talking about? Fucking gay men like those fucking tall, skinny ones. You know what I mean? Fucking fashion model types. It's just, guys don't really like that build. I don't, in general. Most guys are fucking into something kind of like a hustler honey. You know what I mean? Fucking, a little more realistic shape, booty, and, some fucking stacked and not so tall, shorter. And all the fucking women in the cults were like that too. They're mannequins, tall, skinny.
Well,
not
like
sexy.
I said, I think that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to be symbols more than people.
Yeah, they didn't. To me, I'm just fucking animalistic with it. You know what I mean? It's got to look fertile. You know what I'm talking about? It looks like
I want some Venus of
like
Willendorf
it might
action.
Get pregnant if I look at it too hard. You know what I'm talking about? Can't stare at it too long, you might impregnate it. You know what I mean? Lots of hormones.
Man, I hate when that happens.
I hate that shit. Yeah. I hate that shit.
You have to go around with like a mask over your eyes so you don't accidentally impregnate people.
Yeah, that's how much estrogen is in there. They just on the verge of getting pregnant.
Just spontaneous pregnancy.
Fucking right, Boink. They're kind of short with curves and boobs and shiny and chrome, like out of fucking shiny and chrome, like out of Fury Road, You might get pregnant. That's my taste.
Yeah. And I'm just saying that I think that it was kind of, this got, I think like some critics like really, really loved this when it came out, like Roger Ebert really, really liked it. Some critics thought it was really disappointing. But I think maybe some of the criticisms that they had were because of the expectation. Like I said, the way it was marketed before it came out. And I think because there was so much, behind the scenes shit going on with, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman being really married in real life and like all these rumors about them coming out, like about their marriage being on the rocks and whatnot. And then about how long the shoot took and like how everyone was having like health issues because it was taking so long and it was getting stressed out. So it's kind of like, I feel like that might have marred it somewhat, and also the fact that it being Stanley Kubrick's last movie because he died like shortly after finishing it, and so people had like certain expectations for it. It was going to be like his final artistic statement or something. So I think people were maybe expecting something that wasn't there or wasn't what he wanted to make. You know what I mean? I think people should have just taken it on its own terms. So I think that since it's been out for more than 20 years at this point, and I think it's gotten reassessed where people are more able to like separate it from the context of the time that it came out and are more able to see it for what it was intended to be rather than what it was marketed to be or what people were expecting it to be. Yeah. Because like I said, erotic thriller, this is not an erotic thriller. Because when I think erotic thriller, I think that shit that's like on Skinamax. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like about maybe like Basic Instinct or like one of those Basic Instinct ripoffs or something. Or like Body of Evidence, that horrible one with fucking Madonna with the hot wax.
I didn't see that.
It's good thing I didn't. Don't bother. It's awful. Willem Dafoe was in it, and I love him, but it's like it was a really, really bad
Madonna
movie.
Did not age well, just psychologically. She just got crazier and crazier as she fucking went. I liked her back in the 80s, but she just fucking...
I did as well.
She's fucking annoying.
I had a couple of her albums. I think I had a couple of her albums up until True Blue, and then after that I was just
once you get... It's kind of like Bono. They just start crawling up their own asses so much, man. It's like,
well, especially, when you get that famous, it's really hard to keep yourself grounded.
Yeah, it's like fucking Sting, man.
Like, we were talking
about Sting. Sting started talking, you're like, dude, man, just shut up. Please stop talking, man. You're ruining it.
You're ruining it. I used to like you.
Throw all my fucking Police albums out.
I can still listen to their albums.
He just fucking comes
I just try not to think about it.
The Royal Duke and shit. You know what I mean? There's only one person that could do that, and that was David Bowie.
Yeah.
Only David Bowie could act that fucking...
David Bowie,
uppity.
He was kind of like the only person that could get away with a lot of shit.
He could get away with a lot of uppityness.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't
Well, that's because everybody knew he was dirty. He was bad.
Well, he didn't make any secret of it.
He didn't make any secret of it, so you knew exactly what you were dealing with.
I think that's kind of why he got away with it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he could be pretentious, but he could turn around and
snort coke.
Yeah, kind of make fun of his own pretentiousness, and it's like, you can do it then.
Yeah, he did.
It's a fine line to walk.
Bowie did not take himself that seriously.
That's kind of what
he had a good sense of humor.
Yeah, see, I think that's kind of the key there, is that you can be whatever you're like, as long as you don't take yourself too seriously, and don't get all, like, if somebody just, you have to have a sense of humor about yourself, man. You can't just get all defensive and it's like, shut up, man.
All right, so
you can't be like that.
Back to the movie. I thought the acting was good. Fucking direction was really good. The shots, everything, the way
it's a beautiful, beautiful.
It's good, movie. And it's when it came out, I wasn't all that impressed.
I wasn't either. I guess
I'd put this right next to The Shining. I think it's cool.
Yeah,
The Shining's a straight up horror movie, but this is almost adjacent to it. It's a lot like it. It felt a lot like it.
Yeah, it has that same, like, kind of slow, unsettling sort of
Yeah, they go down a hallway and the fucking camera's following them down the hallway. Just the way it's shot, the way it feels. It feels a lot like, talking to Mr. Ullman a lot. And it feels like a lot of... It feels like a little bit higher class, so you're talking about people with a little bit more money. But it really had that Shining feel to me.
Can I say I love the use of Christmas lights in this? Yeah. And I think that is significant also because pretty much everywhere he goes is has all these beautiful Christmas lights and Christmas decorations. It's this kind of like really multicolored like warmth and kind of reminding you of the season all the time. And the only place that doesn't have Christmas decorations or a Christmas tree is the mansion, like where the sex cult is.
Whenever the servants would show up and give him letters and weird creepy, it was almost kind of like always dealing with Grady.
Yeah.
It just, and the music and the parties, and it felt like you were dealing with the same people that made the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah.
And it's definitely telegraphing it to you that it's that same class of person, that same type of person. So remember I had my theory that maybe the Overlook Hotel was like a fucking temple?
Yeah.
A temple made of evil. Maybe it was like that, like sex cults, and it was that same cult.
Yeah.
That was doing that, maybe.
Oh, I want to mention, too, there's a couple more things I wanted to mention that I forgot. I wanted to mention, too, that a lot of people have pointed out that they think that the main guy, in the sex cult, Red Cloak, he's not given a name, they think that might be Ziegler.
Yeah, it's him, because that's the way he's moving the damn ball.
Yeah, because he does that thing with the thing, and then he, with the staff, and then at the end, when he's talking to Tom Cruise's character, on the pool table, he does the ball.
I thought that was obvious.
Yeah, so I was like, in case anybody didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Also, much like in a David Lynch movie, there's a lot of mirroring of characters in this. Like, after the whole argument that they have, that is kind of the instigating incident, like I said. And as I said, every time there's some kind of like emotional outburst, something like that, it's like Tom Cruise's character Bill is always interrupted by something. It's like somebody shows up, or it's like the phone rings or something. So during this, altercation that he's having with his wife, or this argument he's having with his wife, the phone rings. One of his, patients has died, and so he wants to go over there and console the family or whatever. Then it turns out that the daughter of the old dude that's dead, she's engaged to be married to somebody else, but then she pledges her love to him, even though they don't know each other. Again, anonymous sex. So it's almost kind of like they're mirroring. In this scenario, he is the naval officer that his wife was fantasizing about, and the woman, Marianne, is Alice, because even her hair is the same color, and it's in the same style and shit like that. So everything is mirrored. And then when her fiance shows up, he looks like Tom Cruise kind of. He's got the same haircut, the same hair color, but he has glasses on like Alice has. So it's so it's constant like mirroring of like characters, like from one scene to another. And also some people have said because she's named Alice, like Alice through the looking glass, because there's like a lot of mirrors and shit like that. Like I said, so there's so many like fucking layers to this movie, just like any other fucking Kubrick movie. Somebody needs to make a documentary like they made about The Shining, Room 237, with all the... Yeah. Although most of The Shining theories, like, obviously it is layered, and he did have, like, there are a lot of hidden meanings in it, but some of the shit, like, of faking the moon landing and stuff, that's bullshit. I don't believe any of that. It's too much of a stretch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he did have thematic elements. He did have, like I said, he did mention in this movie, he referenced other movies, and he even, like, said this later on. And he was referencing like the Odyssey, like I said, he was referencing like some ancient poems and like with the paintings and shit like that in the background. So he was doing that, but I think that he had a tendency to do that, but I think some people like maybe will take it a little bit too far.
I had to see it again. You're right. Yeah, I think the Odyssey thing. Yeah, you're right. While he's off on the journey, all the women fucking trying to hit up his woman back at the homestead. The homestead and shit. So, yeah, that's there.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that reading like multiple times, like various people that have. And
my take on the whole cult element is that they weren't LARPing as a cult. I think it was a cult because it was too organized, and I think they did kill the girl. But I think they just gave her a bunch of drugs.
Yeah,
and she was she was a drug addict anyway. But why was she a drug addict? Was she a drug addict because he just kept giving her drugs to keep her under control?
Yeah,
and they're possible. Saying they were hookers. But they were just LARPing that they were in a cult. Maybe they were hookers that were inducted into a cult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And given a bunch of drugs and taken care of. You know what I mean? Until they became security risks and they got rid of them. So, like you said, it's all kind of gray.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
it depends on how you want to describe it.
And the ambiguity is the point. Right, and the ambiguity is, the character of Bill, he's kind of like... He's not privy to shit that's going on in the top, you know.
The question is was it a cult or was it people, sexual perverts, LARPing that they were in a cult? And
in the end, does it really matter?
My analysis is that it was a real cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it very well may have been.
Yeah, I think it was a real cult.
Yeah. But, so if you haven't seen Stanley Kubrick's last film, Eyes Wide Shut, in a while, and look, I even wore my Overlook Hotel shirt just for the occasion. This is the only Stanley Kubrick shirt. No, I have a Clockwork Orange one, too, now that I think about it. Should have worn that one. Shit, I forgot. But I haven't worn this one in a while. Yeah, if you haven't seen it in a while, check it out again, because it really did, even though when I saw it in the theater, I liked it, but I was just kind of like, it's not, because I was like a big, Kubrick fan. I loved Clockwork Orange.
Well.
But it did actually age really well. And the more you see it, the more kind of layers come to the surface. And like I said, like all of Kubrick's films, this has multiple interpretations.
It made me want to watch The Shining again, and it also made me want to watch a Peter Sellers movie named Being There. It was also about a secret society.
I haven't seen that in so long, and I love that movie.
Kind of like that, too.
I don't think I've seen that since like the mid-90s.
I want to get that on Blu-ray if there's a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, you should probably order that shit.
Yeah,
I will say that we have the Blu-ray of this, right? Of Eyes Wide Shut that you ordered.
Yeah, it's a good copy.
It's got like a bunch of extras on it, but it's weird because this was Kubrick's last film, and
they're generic extras.
and he died like before it was before it came out. The extras that are on there aren't specifically about this movie. No. There's like some interviews that are about his career as a whole, but
and there's some interviews of Tom Cruise talking about Kubrick.
A little bit, yeah.
A lot of people fucking goof on Tom because of Scientology and the crazy shit that he's fucking said in the past. But I respect Tom. He's a good actor, and he does his own stunts, and he aged pretty well. He's probably how old in this movie? Maybe 30.
Oh, gosh.
30-something. And he's kind of thin, but you can see he really got a lot bigger in the years after that.
Yeah.
He buffed out a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is kind of the last movie you see him where he's not big.
Yeah. He's in good shape, but he's not like...
He's not massive.
Not massive.
I'm bigger than him. Later. And I'm bigger than him in that movie. And we're about the same size guys. We're both shorties. Yeah. But hey, man, he rides motorcycles, does his own stunts and shit. You know what I mean? And he doesn't like communists and shit. He does weird shit with Scientology. Whatever, man.
Scientology,
whatever.
Fucking crazy.
Well, you know, what's he gonna do? Join the army? He can't join the army and do all that kind of stuff. He was a famous actor.
Yeah.
So he got his training from Scientology, and I think they get. Of course, he got the best Scientology. He didn't get.
Well, like I said, he didn't get the shitty Scientology where he had to sleep in the trailer and poop in a bucket.
No, they were making whole compounds for Tom and his wife.
Well, yeah, and they made like all the slave Scientologists fucking
make his fucking vehicles and shit.
They had to like do all the shit for him. It's like, hey, plant all these flowers over here, like because he likes those and all that other kind of shit.
Yeah, although they're not gonna call them slave Scientologists, they're gonna call them like servicemen
or something.
Yeah, they've given their time to the fucking organization to save the earth.
I was gonna say like the first time I saw this movie, I think like Tom Cruise's character like pissed me off a lot, but. Now that I'm watching it again, I'm like, I think that was kind of the whole point of his character.
Yeah, it is.
Was that he's supposed to be unlikable. He's supposed to be...
But he's not overtly unlikable.
He's not overtly unlikable.
He's a fucking really, like, superficial fucking Chad.
Yeah, he's very superficial. He's very passive.
Yeah.
He, he's easily led by women.
He's a beta.
It's like he's, when he's walking down the street, like the prostitute, he doesn't go up to a prostitute. She comes up to him and is like, hey, come back to my apartment. He's
and it takes him forever to realize that this is a prostitute.
No, he knows it's a prostitute.
Well, once she asked him in.
Yeah.
I don't think he saw it coming, though, at first. He just was like, huh? Maybe he did. He's like, want to go play? Or you want to have fun? He goes, oh, you want to have fun?
Yeah, where's fun?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, he just kind of ends up, he just ends up being led around by his dick, essentially. But then he's constantly blue-balled because he's like, always getting interrupted or he always like changes his mind.
Like, oh, this is unwholesome. Whores are everywhere.
Poor Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Well, that's his character,
I
man.
know, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Whores are everywhere. I can't take it. Oh, my wife's a whore. Oh, whores control the earth.
And it's like, she didn't even do anything. All she did was, like, think about it.
Yeah.
And she didn't even act on it.
He's going to go out and try to get him some real nanny. Isn't that what...
Punani.
How does he call it?
Punani.
Yeah, this Steven Seagal's word for it. Punani.
I don't even like to say that out loud. It makes me go.
I'm telling you, man.
Especially when I think about Steven Seagal saying it out loud.
Steven Seagal, that's an amazing man. That's an amazing man.
Yeah, if they remake this movie, they should put Steven Seagal in it. Please,
imagine
please
if
don't
Steven
do that.
Seagal does this shit.
Gross. I'm throwing up.
They need a fucking body double for every fucking shot.
Yeah, it's like you know what? Don't even come in.
Eventually, Steven Seagal movies will just be his eyes. Everything else is a fucking every
until his eyes get
body
too fat.
double. And then eventually it's just eyes with glasses over the eyes, black glasses. How you doing?
Wouldn't that be hilarious if they just made a straight to DVD, which I guess they all are nowadays, but a Steven Seagal movie, and it's just like an hour and 45 minutes of Steven Seagal's sunglasses.
And then he can't show up to the shoots, so they have another dude there with glasses over the eyes.
It's like you can't tell it's him.
There's even Steven Seagal movies where it's not even his voice.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's voice trying to do a Steven Seagal impression.
Like I said, why does he even have to turn up? They're just like you know what? Just stay in your trailer. We don't need you. You're fine.
I'll be over, just start making the movie. I'll be over there later.
I'll be over here eating a sandwich.
Yeah.
Call me when the checks come in.
Oh, it's time to shoot your scene. Can't somebody else do it? Yeah, can you do it for me?
I'm kind of busy right now.
Do it for me. I gotta drink my energy drink. Asian experience.
He's having an Asian experience. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, as usual, we went off. We were talking about Eyes Wide Shut, but yeah. So check that movie again. What does everybody else think about it? Because this is kind of one of his more, I guess, is one of Stanley Kubrick's more not controversial, but like in the sense that it tends to get more mixed reviews than some of his other ones. So I'm kind of curious what everybody thinks about it.
I liked it.
I liked it too. Yeah. Like I said, it's not my favorite movie of his by a long stretch, but
it's not bad at all.
I appreciate it a lot more than I did when I first saw it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So if you haven't seen it in a while, then check it out once again.